The snowstorm had already begun to fade when Officer Samuel Briggs stopped his patrol car at a dark, silent bus stop. Frost clung to the bench like a memory trying to disappear. An old man sat there, barely breathing, lips turning blue, as if winter itself had claimed him first. Beside Sam, a black and tan canine named Titan leaned forward, not barking, not moving, just listening to something Sam couldn't hear. Moments later, the old man whispered a name he wasn't supposed to know, a name Sam and Titan had buried with someone they loved. And that night, saving him wouldn't just cost a paycheck, it would change the law of an entire city. Subscribe if you believe some heroes don't chase glory or money, they only refuse to walk away. Thin snow flurried against the windshield, drifting in the dark like tired feathers that didn't know where to land. Officer Samuel Briggs sat alone in his patrol car outside the station lot, the engine humming low, steady as a heartbeat. He was 40, tall, and lean from years of long shifts, wearing a zipped Navy K9 winter coat that kept the cold from biting through. The digital form on his screen blinked with a quiet urgency. Overtime request, 4 hours. 4 more hours would cover the final hospital fee of his wife's treatment. Not much for the world, but to him, it was the last weight he owed her, a debt carried like a stone in his chest. He hesitated only a moment, smoothing the paperwork with a practiced hand before placing his thumb over the signature pad. His breath fogged the screen, and he whispered in the stillness, not as a policeman, but as a widower. "Just this last one, Claire. Then I make things right." Titan shifted behind him. The 7-year-old German shepherd stood on strong legs, his black and tan coat thick as winter earth, his left leg sometimes stiff, but still dependable, still loyal. Titan watched Sam with quiet patience, sensing duty not from command but from grief. Claire had trained him, her hands gentle, her voice warm, and her laughter something the dog seemed to remember better than Sam himself did. When Claire died, she left Titan like a final piece of herself, something alive to hold on to. Sam had promised her at the grave, his voice cracking through the winter air, "I will take care of him. He won't be abandoned." Since then, Titan had become more than a K9 partner. He was a heartbeat that stayed when everything else left. The clock read 21:14, a minute that should have slipped by quietly, unnoticed, like any other. Yet Titan lifted his head sharply, ears rising, body tensing with sudden purpose. No bark came at first, just a low rumble from deep in his chest, a warning held on the edge. Then it broke, a sharp, urgent bark. No hesitation, no mistake, not noise, but signal, a trained alert used only when a life nearby hung by a thread. Sam frowned. The overtime request was still unsigned. The moment he stepped out now, he might lose the pay. And the last chance to close the debt tied to Claire's memory and Titan's medical cost. He looked at the form again, then at Titan. The dog barked again, louder, insistent, as if pushing him out of the car, out of his stubbornness, out of the past. Something in Sam cracked open, a quiet surrender that came not from duty, but love. His hand dropped from the screen. The request remained unsigned. He opened the door into the stinging cold. Titan followed, stepping beside him like a promise returning to life. Snow drifted in thin, crooked lines, bending with the wind like tired handwriting, fading into night. Sam followed Titan through the cold, the air sharp enough to sting the throat, his boots pressed into packed ice, slow and cautious, while Titan moved ahead with a quiet, alert certainty. The dog's black and tan coat seemed to catch what little light there was, as if holding on to the last fragments of day. A bus stop stood at the edge of the street, wooden bench, metal sign, no lamps, no shelter, only wind. There, an old man sat, trembling like a small flame about to go out. His lips were bluish. His breath stuttered through his cracked mouth. He wore a long gray wool coat, too thin for weather this cruel, and a brown scarf wrapped tight around his neck, as if someone had once reminded him to stay warm. Sam saw age, fragility, and something lost. He spoke softly. "Sir, do you need help?" His voice tried to be steady, but there was a quiver beneath it, the kind that belongs to men holding too much inside. The man did not look at Sam. He stared at Titan, and when he spoke, his voice came strained and wandering, like it had traveled a long way before reaching his lips. "Milo, you came back. You finally came back for me." Titan froze, not from cold but recognition of something he couldn't name. A K9 was trained to move, to assess, yet he stayed still, as if caught in memory not his own. Sam had only heard Titan bark earlier, but this was different. This was silence with meaning. The old man lifted a trembling hand, almost as though expecting Titan to nudge his palm the way a familiar dog would. Sam's chest tightened. Milo. Claire had whispered that name once, laughing shyly, saying if they ever had a boy, she'd choose it. Strong but soft, like someone who knows how to come home. They never got the chance. The word felt like a ghost brushing against him. Wind pressed harder now, throwing snow sideways, scraping against metal and bone. The old man leaned forward, his voice breaking. I waited so long in the cold. He never came back. He never forgave me." His coat rattled in the wind. His eyes, unfocused, stared beyond Titan into some winter of the past. Sam knew this road. 30 years ago, a storm had taken a young man here. A death spoken of in rumor. A story of someone left waiting. Forgotten. Frozen before help arrived. Sam felt the weight of it. Not as a police officer, but as a man who knew the pain of being late, of losing someone by inches of time. He knelt beside the old man, placing a steady hand near his shoulder, afraid to break him. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "We'll get you home." Titan finally moved, stepping closer, laying warmth beside a broken memory. In the freezing dark, Sam realized help was not just rescue. It was forgiveness offered to someone still alive. Wind scraped the street like sandpaper, carrying the sound of sirens far away, then burying them in snow. Sam pressed his radio close to his mouth, speaking with steady urgency. Dispatch confirmed what he already feared. An ambulance was stuck behind a multi-car crash near the highway. No backup, no transport, not soon. The old man's breathing came in shallow bursts, fog in the night air. His gray coat looked thinner now, soaked by blowing snow that clung to the fabric like frostbite settling in. Hypothermia had a way of stealing life quietly. First the shivering, then the slowing, then nothing at all. Sam knew the rules. Officers were trained not to transport severe hypothermia patients alone. The ride could kill them quicker than the cold itself. His radio crackled again. Hold position. Report status every 3 minutes. A voice firm, procedural, distant. Sam looked at the old man. Not a patient, not a task, but a father whose story was unraveling under his breath. The old man's lips trembled into stuttering words. I waited. He never came back. I thought I could wait it out. I thought he'd know the way home. His fingers shook uncontrollably now, his body jerking in small, painful spasms. Titan stepped closer, his thick coat brushing against the man's side, sharing warmth the way trained dogs learn to do, not as instinct, but as mercy. The German shepherd lay pressed to him, steady and deliberate, his breath soft, almost protective. Sam felt the sting of guilt that had nothing to do with procedure. How many times had he waited for something too late to come? With Claire, he waited too long to say goodbye, believing there would always be one more day, one more chance. Now he stood again in the dark, watching someone fade into regret. He called the dispatcher again. He's seizing now. We're losing him. The answer: do not move the patient. EMT will assume liability once they arrive. Liability, a word meant for policy, not people. The snow thickened, a curtain closing on time. Sam imagined explaining to Claire why he followed the rules while a man froze inches from his hands. Titan suddenly leapt into the back seat of the patrol car, positioning himself beside the old man, waiting as if the decision had already been made. The dog didn't bark. He simply stared at Sam, steady and expectant, not ordering, not pleading, just choosing. Sam opened the rear door wider, feeling the cold rush through him. "You're doing this on your own?" he whispered to Titan. The old dog didn't move, didn't look away. Sam lifted the frail man into his arms, feeling how light sorrow becomes when the body can no longer hold its weight. The car door shut with a muted thud, muffled by snow. He climbed into the driver's seat, heart quiet but fierce, and murmured, "All right, I'll listen, but don't let me regret this." The engine warmed just enough to carry hope. The mountain road held its breath, covered in ice that looked like glass laid over powdered snow. The patrol car climbed slowly, tires whispering against frozen pavement. Visibility was shrinking as drifting snow thickened against the windshield. Sam leaned forward, tense, trying to read the road the way one reads a troubled conversation, waiting for the moment something goes wrong. In the back seat, Titan stayed pressed against the old man, sharing heat, his body a warm barrier against the biting cold. The old man's eyelids fluttered, his voice a fading echo of guilt, speaking as though the storm were a witness. "I left him that night. I left my boy there. I thought he'd find his way." His breath turned shallow, barely forming words. Sam glanced into the rear mirror, watching the man's face folding under memories heavier than the snow falling outside. He recognized the look, regret that no apology could repair. A low rumble grew beneath the wind. Headlights suddenly cut through the white curtain ahead, a truck sliding sideways across the road. Sam froze for half a second, too long for ice and gravity. Before he reacted, Titan sprung forward, bracing his body against Sam's seat and slamming his paw down instinctively on the steering column, pressing the patrol horn. The loud blast startled the truck driver, who fought the skid just enough for Sam to wrench the wheel aside. The patrol car swerved, fishtailing, but missed the truck by inches. Metal groaned and glass rattled, then silence again. In the rear mirror, Titan's leg trembled, his body drooping slightly. The sudden shift had strained his weak left limb, the one Clara had once nursed with patient hands and warm towels. Pain flickered through Titan's posture, not in sound, but in the way he settled back down. Quiet, loyal, willing. Sam pulled the car over to steady his breath. Titan lay down, one paw lifted awkwardly, yet his eyes never left the old man. Sam remembered another night, another explosion, another horn hit by accident that saved his life. Titan had been younger then, untrained, just a rescue dog Clara believed in, when no one else did. She stayed up night after night, teaching him commands, teaching Sam to trust something fragile again. Now, years later, Titan moved the same way, but slower, older, carrying the cost of being relied upon too often. Sam swallowed hard. "Why do you always take the hit first?" he whispered. Titan didn't answer, only leaned against the trembling old man again, his breath steadying him the way Clara once steadied Sam. The road ahead remained dangerous, but Sam put the car back into gear without hesitation. They would keep going, not because it was safe, but because turning back would mean surrendering someone to regret. The engine hummed softly, like a promise renewing itself despite the cold. Snow muffled the world outside the iron gates as warm light spilled from a large country house at the end of a long driveway. Sam guided the patrol car slowly forward, tires crunching through the icy gravel. The house, trimmed with old oak beams and golden windows, looked too peaceful for the storm he carried inside it. Family members rushed out the moment the headlights cut across the porch. Among them was a woman in her late 30s, wearing a wool coat the color of dusk and a knitted scarf pulled tight at her throat. Her hair was swept half back, as though she had dressed in a hurry, and her eyes held equal parts fear and hope. When the back door opened, she didn't look at Sam first. She looked at the trembling man he was lifting into her arms. Her voice cracked at the edges, soft but frantic. "Dad, Dad, look at me. Stay with me, please." She held him tightly, as if her embrace alone might warm him back to life. A paramedic stepped in, tall and sturdy, a man exhausted by a long night shift. His navy coat streaked with melted snow. His voice carried the firm calm of someone who has seen too many endings, but still fights each one. 20 minutes later, and he wouldn't have survived. His core temperature dropped too low. You bought him time. Sam nodded silently. It wasn't pride he felt, just relief, and the heaviness of responsibility settling like snow on his shoulders. Titan stood by the car, front left paw lifted slightly, waiting. Sam gently pressed a hand against his flank as if to say, "You did good. Rest now." Titan lowered the paw and leaned in, accepting the quiet gratitude. Inside, beneath the chandelier's warm glow, Edgar's breathing steadied. His eyes opened, clearer, no longer lost in the fog of memory. He looked at Sam with something painfully lucid. His voice trembled, not with weakness, but with truth long withheld. "You didn't leave me, like I left my boy. I deserved the snow. You still came for me." Sam felt the words settle deeply. This wasn't confusion, it was confession. The daughter tightened her arms around Edgar, half sobbing, half scolding. "You don't get to disappear again. Not from me." Sam stepped back, understanding she wasn't just afraid of losing him. She was afraid of losing forgiveness. A family member reached for Sam's hand, pressing folded bills into his palm. Thanks offered in the language many believed was universal. But he let his hand fall open, letting the money slide back. "I'm just doing my job," he said gently, without judgment. Titan limped beside him, the quiet shadow of a soldier retiring from battle. No cheering crowd, no applause. Only two figures walking away from a fire they chose to put out without expecting warmth for themselves. The snow closed behind them, and the warm house glowed on, a place where someone had been saved not from death, but from a lifetime of regret. Morning arrived pale and heavy, with sunlight dulled behind a layer of winter fog. Sam walked Titan into the station slowly, matching his pace to the dog's cautious step. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee and cold air, dragged in by officers coming off night duty. A meeting room door stood open, and a supervisor waited inside, a folder in his hand. He was a lean man in his early 50s, dressed in a neatly zipped navy uniform jacket, clean-shaven, his posture rigid from years of procedure. His voice, though calm, felt like the edge of something unyielding. "Briggs," he said, motioning for Sam to sit. Titan lay at Sam's feet, lowering his body with a soft hesitation, his left paw lifted slightly as though the floor were too hard. The supervisor continued, "You weren't punished for helping a civilian. You need to know that. But you operated the patrol vehicle without clearance, and your K-9 assistant wasn't dispatched to that call. There are protocols for a reason." The words were official, but not cruel. Rules spoken like weather, neither personal nor negotiable. Sam nodded, yet the air in his lungs felt tight. The supervisor set the folder down but didn't open it. "There are consequences," he said quietly. "Your driving clearance may be revoked for a period. Titan could be reassigned if he's judged unfit for duty." The sentence landed heavier than any reprimand. Titan was more than a partner. He was the last thread of Clara's kindness, the final promise Sam still kept. The dog didn't understand paperwork, but he sensed tension, pressing closer to Sam's boot, resting his head near Sam's heel, as if anchoring him. That simple gesture pierced deeper than any rebuke. Sam heard nothing more, only the soft breath of the animal that had saved his life more than once. At the veterinary clinic, the smell of antiseptic drifted beneath warm yellow lights. A doctor in her early 40s, hair tied back in a practical knot, met Sam with tired gentleness. She wore a thick brown coat over scrubs, as though she had rushed from one emergency to the next. Her voice was steady, softened by empathy. His tendon is inflamed. There's damage that never healed properly. If he keeps compensating like this, it could rupture. Surgery is best. And soon. Sam ran his fingers through Titan's black and tan fur, feeling the warmth under his palm, a warmth that had pulled an old man back from the edge of death. Titan looked up at him with calm trust, unaware of how fragile his future had suddenly become. Sam whispered more to himself than anyone else. "If I lose you, it'll be losing her again." The doctor pretended not to hear, letting the silence be a kindness. Outside, snow began again, soft flakes falling without wind, like forgiveness drifting slowly from the sky. Titan leaned against Sam's leg, waiting without fear. The cost was no longer about rules or money or careers. It was about keeping a promise that grief had not managed to erase. Cold rain polished the asphalt outside the station, turning every light into a blurry reflection. Sam arrived for duty with a quiet mind, prepared to accept whatever decision waited for him. Titan walked at his side with a slower step than usual, still dignified despite the hitch in his gait. As they approached the entrance, the parking lot filled with glossy black cars that didn't belong to police officers. Their engines idled like creatures unsure whether to rest or run. A long limousine stood at the center, its door opening as though the morning itself were about to make a statement. A woman stepped out first, Edgar's daughter, wrapped in a dark green coat and leather gloves, her expression calm yet determined. Behind her came a lawyer in a charcoal suit, holding an organized stack of folders, a veterinarian in a thick brown coat with tired eyes, and a journalist with a camera slung over her shoulder, hair damp from the rain. This was not a family visit. It was a reckoning. Inside the lobby, the air smelled of wet boots and old coffee. Officers lined the walls, pretending they were only watching because it was happening in front of them, not because it challenged the very rule book they depended on. The supervising lieutenant stood firm, a man carved from years of routine, hands clasped behind his back. Edgar's daughter spoke without raising her voice, which made her words strike harder. Officer Briggs did not violate duty. He filled a gap where protocol left a man to die. EMTs were blocked by a pileup. He acted when no one else could. She glanced at Titan, who remained seated with perfect discipline, though his injured paw shifted slightly. And this K9 risked injury to protect a stranger. If your system punishes that, then it is the system that needs repair, not the officers who show compassion. The lobby, usually filled with chatter and radios, sank into a stillness, broken only by the rain knocking softly on the windows. The lawyer opened his folders and read clearest of all. Policy allows emergency discretion when threat to life is imminent and assistance is delayed. This is not misconduct. It's a decision supported by the law your department enforces. The veterinarian stepped forward, her voice steady. And this dog deserves medical support from the city he serves. He didn't choose to work here. Humans chose for him. We owe him care, not disposal. The journalist captured every word, her camera clicking gently like a heartbeat keeping time. Sam didn't speak. He didn't need to. The truth, spoken by strangers, carried a weight heavier than any defense he could have made for himself. The supervisor nodded slowly, not in surrender, but in recognition. Rules were meant to serve life, not overshadow it. He looked at Sam, then Titan. "We will review support options for medical treatment," he said. "Driving clearance will be reassessed after recovery. No transfer decisions will be made until then." It wasn't victory. It wasn't applause. It was something humbler, a door that didn't close. Sam felt something loosen in his chest, not relief, but the quiet understanding that justice sometimes arrives dressed as ordinary words spoken by unexpected voices. Titan nuzzled against his leg, not out of pain, but simply because he could. The rain softened to a drizzle, as if the sky decided to listen too. Spring sunlight found its way through thin clouds, warming the sidewalks still damp from melting snow. Sam stood outside the community hall, where a modest wooden sign had been hung that morning. It read in black letters, freshly painted, yet simple, "Titan's Promise Foundation." He hadn't chosen the name. He wouldn't have dared to. Inside, folding chairs were set up in careful rows, and people gathered with the quiet curiosity of those unsure if they were attending a ceremony or witnessing a debt being repaid. Titan lay beside him on a clean blanket, stitches hidden beneath trimmed fur, his posture proud despite healing still underway. The sound of his slow breathing was steady, strong, like the heartbeat of the room. Edgar arrived accompanied by his daughter, a man now upright and alert, dressed in a brown wool coat that seemed to add 10 years of dignity back to him. His face looked less haunted, though the lines of remorse remained, only softened by purpose. He moved toward the small podium, each step taken as if returning something that had been lost. His voice, though thin, carried clearly. "There are debts you cannot apologize for," he said. "Only debts you can turn into protection for others." A document bearing his signature rested on the table, a fund designated for injured K-9s, officers facing hardship, emergency training for when EMTs are delayed, and a program for abandoned elders with memory loss, people who needed someone willing to stay, even when the world walked away. Edgar paused, his gaze settling on Titan. "This dog reminded me that living long is not the same as living right." Sam approached the podium only when invited, uncomfortable beneath the attention of strangers. He looked more like a man being handed a responsibility than being honored. Titan stood beside him, holding a steady stance as if reporting for duty. Sam kept his voice low. "I'm not here to receive anything," he said. "We don't save people to earn gratitude. We save them because we can't leave them, not when we're the ones who find them." Edgar reached forward, placing a firm hand over Sam's. The gesture was not celebration, but confession turned into action. "You saved someone who thought he deserved snow," Edgar said softly. "And now, others who are innocent will live because you refused to leave me there." Titan pressed against Sam's leg, not out of weakness nor habit, but as if acknowledging a new oath. His tail lifted just slightly, then a bark burst from him, clear, bright, and no longer strained. The room stirred into quiet laughter and warm applause that felt less like praise and more like relief. Sam knelt beside Titan, resting a hand against his healed shoulder. "We didn't lose family," he murmured. "We found more of it." Titan leaned into him, as though sealing the vow. They had not repaid a debt with money. They had offered something rarer, second chances given freely, like a door, left open for whoever might need to step through next. When life grows colder, some people are forgotten in the quiet corners of the world, and some heroes serve without applause, risking everything simply because a heart in danger is worth more than rules or titles. Tonight reminds us that compassion can change a life, and sometimes even rewrite the law. One old man found his way back home, and one faithful canine stood between duty and mercy, choosing both. If this story warmed your heart, share it with someone who feels alone. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe to walk with us. May kindness guide your days, and may hope always return to you.